The Woods Are Lovely, Dark, and Deep by Horace Torres. I was waiting to now to ask, so I didn't queer it, but I was curious. Why'd you finally decide to go on a hunt with your old man? Graham Collins paused, leaning against a snow-covered tree trunk, to adjust his pack and shift the rifle strap on his shoulder. His burnished cheeks looked out of place on his rugged farmer's face, and his breath came in cloudy puffs. Misty Collins grinned. "You just had to go and queer it, didn't you, Dad?" She picked her way through the drifted snow toward him, planting her slender fur-topped boots into his blunt footprints. She tipped off balance, but caught herself on his steady shoulder. "Do you want to know the truth?" He nodded. "I couldn't pass up the chance to see you napping in a snowdrift wearing your majestic dad hat." He self-consciously raised a gloved hand to his fur-lined, neon-orange camouflage hunter's cap with tied-up ear flaps. Then he shook his head slowly and turned to continue their march. Misty kept her hand on his shoulder, stepping double through the powder to keep up. "Seriously, though," she puffed, "I figured it meant a lot to you. And the other girls all did it one last big time before going off to college. So I figured it kind of broke tradition, but better late than never. And you've always wanted to come hunt up north here. Why not with your favorite daughter?" "Besides," he interjected, "what else were you going to do to end your Thanksgiving break?" "Exactly." They plodded ahead for a few minutes. He cleared his throat a few times, staring forward. "You know, your sister says you were still hanging out with that rough crowd the last time she visited up here. Your mom and I are a bit worried." "Dad," Misty warned, "you promised." He turned and held up a hand. "I promised. No sermons." He slowed, then unslung his rifle. "Here looks good," he pronounced, and leaned his gun against a tree. A few evergreens formed a natural windbreak, and the snow was shallow. Dropping his pack, he freed two small folding stools and propped them near the thick trunk of an oak. He sunk carefully into one and gestured to the other. Misty dusted hers off, then sat. He grunted, leaning against the oak and shifting his majestic hat down his brow, murmuring, "And now we wait." "Goody," Misty exclaimed. "My favorite part." "Quietly," he amended. A haunting wail woke him. He hunched forward, stiff from the cold. The stool next to him was empty. He pulled up his sleeve, peering at the scratch face of his watch. He'd slept almost 3 hours. Misty must be off relieving herself. Then he saw the blood. 3 heavy drops punctured the snow a few yards to his left. Then a trail of droplets and a jumble of scuffed prints led away into the evergreens. He jolted to his feet, instantly awake. He reached for his gun. Plunging into the stand of evergreens, he emerged beyond and surveyed the woods. The tracks grew more confused and there was more blood. He broke into a jog, following the prints as they wound over a hump in the land. He tread carefully to the top, slowing, alert. Cresting the hillock, he froze. Blood carpeted the base of the hill, a wide patch churned up with mud and leaves mixed in the red snow. A red slick led away into a shallow ravine. He gave a soft cry despite himself. Scudding recklessly down the hill on his boots and seat, he cast his eyes about the stark black tree trunks, looking for sign of predator or human. He circled the blood, stepping over Misty's knit cap with a fuzzy tassel lying in a spray of droplets. He edged toward the ravine, raised his rifle to his shoulder, tucked his chin into the stock, inched forward. White goose down from Misty's vest littered the dark banks of the ravine, Fluttering atop the twisted jumble of blood-stained clothes and lacerated skin crumpled at the edge of the narrow stream. A sob caught in his throat. Who could have done this? The unearthly wail echoed through the woods again, a chilling cry, a challenge. With icy focus, Graham sighted deep tracks gouging the far embankment, leading upstream. He chambered around, realizing he had forgotten earlier. He shucked off his hat, dropping it into the snow. No more mistakes. Loping along his edge of the ravine, he followed the tracks until they climbed into the woods, then plunged into the creek bed and splashed across and up. The howl came once more, closing in. He charged along a snowy rise, shielding his eyes against the glare of the setting sun off the frozen lake ringing the woods, searching for the right place. There, a bare tree fallen against a stump, with a washout beneath it. A perfect blind. He circled, approaching so his footprints would be screened by other trees, then slid into the hollow beneath the log. And now we wait. A twig snapped in the distance from the far side of the log. For an animal, he might have risked a glance from behind cover to scout what he was up against before it got too close. But he knew there were no bears or wolves in this state, no animal big enough to do that to. His throat constricted, and he shook his head, jaw clenched. He would make this right. The soft crush of footfalls on snow became audible above the sighing wind, stalking deliberately toward the log. Wait now. A guttural sniff. 2 more steps. Wait. A huff, and a vapor cloud drifted over the log. Wait. Silence. Now! He rose, swinging his rifle barrel clear of the fallen trunk, instinctively sighting the towering figure and aiming center of mass before pulling the trigger. The shape gave a shriek, pitching backward in a whirl of glistening limbs, collapsing in the snow as the crack of the gunshot died away among the trees. Graham stood, rifle trained on the prone figure. He chambered another round. It was monstrous, elongated limbs sheathed in bare sinew and muscle like a stilted anatomy model, its mouth attenuated into a vicious snout. It arched its back, writhing in the blood-stained snowdrift, whimpering and panting as he approached. He stood well clear of the lanky arms and clawed fingers, rifle poised, but unable to pull the trigger again. Wolfish eyes looked at him, showing neither fear nor malice. The voice was a soft gurgle. "Sorry, Dad." She coughed, and pink foam spattered the white powder. "I thought I had it under control." She drew a long breath. "I'm glad it was you." Graham dropped to his knees in the snow, an anguished moan escaping him as he shuffled to her side, gripping her elongated hand. He felt thin, damp fur protruding from the tendons and flesh. She tensed. "I love you," she managed. Then her talon-like fingers went limp, and her eyes struggled to focus. "There." He shushed her, stroking her clammy hand. He began. She gave a rattling sigh. "They're coming." As her foam-flecked muzzle lolled into the snow, a distant howl rose from the woods, answered by another across the lake.